Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escoffier Online and welcome to our live session this morning. This morning we're going to be making the checkerboard cookie. It's a very classic cookie. It's often sometimes seen at Christmas time and it's very popular in Croatia as well. So the checkerboard cookie is typically made with two different doughs, vanilla and chocolate. Going to be showing you how to make the dough today, and the most important and fascinating aspect of the checkerboard cookie is the assembly. So we're going to be assembling the cookie today as well. Super easy to do. It's just one of these things that there's just some extra steps and there's some time. You've got to put it in the refrigerator to set up, but you will love these and you'll be sure to impress your friends and family if you make them. They're great any time of year. Like anything else, the flavors, the color combinations are limitless with these cookies. This is a basic biscuit or cookie dough with no leavener. The eggs are acting as a leavener. There's no baking powder or baking soda. Super easy, just a few ingredients. You can flavor these doughs with extracts. We're going to be making chocolate and vanilla today, but you can also color the doughs for any holiday season. So be sure to have lots of fun with your checkerboard cookies. I'm going to get you started out with something real basic, a foundation, and then you'll be on your way. Please let me know if you've ever made the cookie before or if you're going to be making them and then how you're doing. I'd love to hear. So for our basic dough, I've got my butter and my powdered sugar in the mixer. We're going to be blending this and then we're going to add our egg yolks. I separated the eggs. I'm saving the egg white for the assembly process to help stick the dough together. I've got a little bit of vanilla and some all-purpose flour and we're going to be ready to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on our mix and then we'll have lots of fun with our assembly. So please let me know if you have any questions. We're just going to be blending this butter and sugar together till it's well incorporated and then adding the eggs. So I've got my butter at room temperature. My powdered sugar, I sifted it before I put it in the bowl. Always be sure you're sifting this, especially when you're using the organic powdered sugars. They have a tendency sometimes to be a little bit more clumpy for some reason, but always sift your powdered sugar, then you won't be getting any lumps. So please let me know if you have any questions. So like I said, assembling these cookies, this is the fun part, and combinations are limitless, and sizes too. You could make the small checkerboard squares or you could make large ones, perhaps just 4 squares for one cookie, 2 chocolate and 2 yellow. So have lots of fun with these. There's a lot of different ways that you can make them and a lot of different combinations. So please let me know, maybe send me some pictures of something that you've done as well. So our powdered sugar and our butter are becoming well incorporated. Gonna let them mix till they're nice and smooth. Then we'll be adding our egg yolks. This is a nice dough, it's nice and sweet. Real easy to work with. It's not too sticky, of course, in these warmer months. Your doughs are gonna get stickier, but this is a nice dough. It's pretty pliable. I think you'll like it a lot. Okay, so let's scrape this down a bit. And then we will be on our way. Gonna get a little bit out of the mixer here. And then we'll be adding our egg yolks. Okay, ready to go. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and add the egg yolks. I've got a little bit of vanilla. Like I said, a lot of different extracts you can be using for these. You'll have a lot of fun. I'm just going to let this incorporate and then we're going to be adding our flour. I've got a little bit of salt in here too. So this is the vanilla based dough. Very simple. This is what you'll be using and this is what you'll be coloring and flavoring as well. So when we're finished with our vanilla based dough, we're going to take a portion of it and we're going to flavor it with some cocoa powder, making it the chocolate aspect of the cookie. So let me know if you have any questions on that. Let's go ahead and kind of scrape this down a little bit. Make sure all of these ingredients are well incorporated. Gonna get some of the butter out of our paddle here. Okay. And then let this mix pretty well. Then we're going to add the flour in. Just about well incorporated. I'm going to scrape it down just a little bit more. I've got a little butter over here. And this dough also freezes very well. You can make these up ahead of time. And you can make the dough ahead of time, store it in the refrigerator, and then just bake it off. Okay, now this is well incorporated. I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add our flour. Remember, I've got a little bit of salt in here. I'm going to add half, and then I'll add the other half. We'll let this mix in a little bit. This dough is not real sticky, so it's going to appear crumbly once you add your flour, but don't worry, it's going to come together for you. That's the beauty of this dough. It handles so nicely. I highly recommend this recipe. And be sure to let me know if you have any questions. Okay, it's pretty well incorporated. Going to go ahead and add the rest of the flour. And then you'll see what I mean about this being crumbly. So just, let it mix, let it kind of work on its own. It's going to come together for you. Then comes the fun part. Okay, it's kind of forming its dough shape. It's looking really good. I'm going to take it out of the mixer, and I'll kind of knead it a little bit to make sure that it's all well incorporated. And then we'll be on our way to make our cookies. Okay, so we're going to take this out of the bowl. We're going to take a good look at it because we're going to be dividing this for the cookies. So we're going to be dividing it in 2/3 first, and then we're going to flavor 1/3, and then we're going to use the other 2/3 for the vanilla aspect of the cookie. So don't clean your paddle yet because this is going to go back on the machine. Okay, I'm just kind of getting this out of the bowl with my scraper. Super nice dough. It's going to be easy to handle. We're just going to kind of mix this a little bit by hand to make sure we have all the ingredients well incorporated. A little bit of sticking here, but that's okay. We're just going to get most of it out. The bowl is going to go back on because we're going to be adding the dough to make the chocolate. Okay, so any questions so far? Like I said, super nice dough, really pliable. I'm just going to mix this by hand a little bit here. Got a little bit of stickiness. Some of the ingredients need to be a little bit more incorporated. Okay. You can add, at this point, you can kind of add a little bit of flour with the sticking if you need to, but I think that you'll be okay. Okay. Now, we're going to be dividing the dough. So, if you're making just a classic checkerboard cookie with the dough kind of enrobing the outside as well, you're going to divide this into about 1/3. You can weigh it if you like, but I just kind of portion my dough into 1/3. And I'm just going to do just a little bit more. And then we're going to make the chocolate with this piece. Okay, so the rest of the dough we're going to be putting aside. We'll be using this other 1/3. We're going to be using just a little bit more than 1/3 for the vanilla in the checker part. And then we'll use this last small piece piece to enrobe the dough with. Okay, so I know it's a lot of steps, but that's the fun of the checkerboard cookies. So next we're going to be making the chocolate portion of the dough. Super easy. You'll see some recipes where you're doing this with chocolate. We're just going to be doing this with a little bit of cocoa powder. What we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of water, and then we're going to make a paste with a little bit of flour and add it to the dough. So the cocoa powder needs to dissolve a little bit in a liquid, and that's going to bring the color out. You can use natural cocoa like I'm using, or you can use the Dutch process. The Dutch process is much darker cocoa powder, and you're just going to get, you know, a deeper chocolatey color, and the flavor is about the same. So we're just going to kind of mix this cocoa in with the water a little bit, and then we're just going to add a little bit of flour, kind of help it out. Make this paste, and then we'll be well on our way. Nice chocolate paste. We're going to add a little bit of flour as well. And then we're just going to put this on the machine. And then it's going to mix all this in. Okay, so we've got nice base paste formed. I'm going to pop it in there. And that's going to be our chocolate. So please let me know if you have any questions. If you're not doing chocolate, this is a good time to add the coloring for the dough. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and let this mix in, kind of let it work on its own for a minute, and we're going to have a nice chocolate piece of dough. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So now we have the chocolate aspect of our dough. The chocolate is going to come out a little bit more in the mixture as it sits a little bit, and you can add a little bit more cocoa if you want yours a little more chocolatey, or you can kind of just leave it the way it is. Okay, so we're going to take this out. And that's our chocolate dough. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be forming these doughs into bricks, and then we're going to set them aside in the refrigerator. And this chocolate is just going to deepen in color, and you can also add a little bit more cocoa if you like. Okay, so we're going to form this brick, and typically you're going to make your bricks for just an average size cookie about 1 inch thick, and then you're going to be covering with plastic. And then you're going to put them in the refrigerator until they're well set. Okay, so let's get a little piece of plastic and we'll get this brick wrapped up. Okay, so you're going to want to get this, like I said, about 1 inch thick, and you're going to kind of want to get it as flat as you can, but when you're making the cookies, you can trim these as well. Okay, so that's our brick, about 1 inch thick. We're going to do the same thing with the vanilla aspect. And then these are going to go in the refrigerator. Depending on the size of these bricks, that's going to depend on how long you're going to leave them in the refrigerator. These, I would say, they would need to refrigerate for probably about 2 hours. You can make them a day ahead of time. You just want them completely set because you're going to be cutting them. So in the refrigerator, these will go. and I've got some that I made earlier. So our dough for enrobing, we're just going to be setting that aside, and it'll be chilled a little bit as well. So let's set this aside, and then we're going to move on to the fun part, the forming of the cookies. Okay, so I've got some bricks that I made earlier that are nice and set. And I used a little bit of Dutch processed cocoa with these. That's why it's a little bit darker. Go ahead and use that. You can also add just a little bit more cocoa if you like. So I'm just going to be unwrapping these. These are nice and chilled. They're going to be super easy to cut. So, like I said, 1 inch thick. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting these in half. So we're going to do a 1/2 inch. So this is going to be a pretty good sized cookie. And you'll be sure to impress your friends and family. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is maybe trim one end of this so you have a nice flat surface for cutting. I recommend maybe a long straight knife like this. Serrated knife might give you some marks in the dough. That's okay, but try to use something like this. So I'm going to be cutting this in half. And just kind of take your time. You just kind of want to do the best that you can. It's not always going to turn out exactly how you want it, but you can trim it up a little bit. Just kind of watch your knife on both sides as it's going down. And just kind of get it as close as you can. Okay, what I usually do too, once I do this, so you've got a little bit of a discrepancy here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be trimming this off a little bit. I had a little bit of a high side, like a lip on the end, and maybe my cutting wasn't the best either. Save your scraps. I'm going to show you what to do with those when we're done. Okay, so this is pretty close. So we're going to go ahead and trim up the other side. Yep, it looks pretty good. And this is going to maybe soften a little bit, and you can flatten it out a little bit. We're going to do the same thing with the chocolate. We're going to kind of make a nice flat edge here. You can mix your scraps together because we're going to do some marble cookies with those. Okay, so got my knife going a little bit crooked. Make sure that you're going the right way here. And just kind of watch going down. Like I said, if you need to, you can trim it up, you can squeeze it up, you can make it work. So don't worry if you accidentally cut these a little bit off. Okay, so this is pretty close. What I'm going to do is trim up this, this edge a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty good. So we've got our 1/2 inch dough. Going to set our knife aside. I always like to start with the chocolate. You can do it any way you like. I always like to put chocolate on the bottom. So we've got our egg white, and we're just going to be brushing this on these layers. This is going to help them stick together. Just enough of the egg white to make this kind of tacky. You don't want it sliding around. Go ahead and press the dough. And this is the foundation and the layers for the checkerboard cookie. So if you have like kind of a little high side and a little low side, you can alternate them a bit. Okay, there we go. This is our first layer. This is our foundation for our checkerboard cookie. Okay, so what you're going to want to do after you stack this is you're going to want to put this in the refrigerator. It's got to set up a little bit. This way there's not going to be any sliding around. And these layers are going to stay very nice and put together and very straight as well. So let's go ahead. These get wrapped up each time they go in the refrigerator. And I've got one that I made earlier that's nice and set that we're going to be cutting up. Okay, so I have a nice piece of dough here. It's nice and set. So now we're going to be making the classic checkerboard layering the design. This is the fun part. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is trim these edges again. You're going to want a pretty flat edge for this. And like I said, save these scraps. You can make some pinwheel, kind of marble cookies with them. And your friends will be sure to like them. Okay. So we've got our edges trimmed up. So now we're going to cut this in quarters. Sometimes I like to mark it first. Be sure that I have my size. So for this cookie, I'm going to be doing 1/4 inch of dough. So I'm just going to be cutting these layers 1/4 inch. And please let me know if you have any questions. So no worries if you don't get your cuts exactly right. I can guarantee you no one is going to notice with your checkerboard cookies. So see how easy it is? Just the layers, you're going to be refrigerating and cutting them. And we have a question.
How long should you refrigerate the stacks?
Okay. The stack, once you stack it, you're going to refrigerate it depending on like how warm your kitchen is, how long you were working on it, how much it needs to set. As you can see, it needs to be firm enough where you can cut it where it's going to hold its shape. So I would say maybe put it in the refrigerator for an hour. If it got real warm in your kitchen, leave it in there for longer. But I think that an hour will be just fine. Okay, so we're ready to do our assembly. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to make a little bit of a smaller cookie, so I'm going to set one of these pieces aside, and you can cut that and make a cookie with it, but we're going to do 3 layers with this. Okay, so once again, you've got to put your egg wash in between each layer, and this is going to help this stick. Okay, so what you're going to do is alternate. And you want the colors alternating that are going on top of each other. So on the chocolate end here, I've got my yellow, and line them up. And take your time with this. This is the fun part. And your friends are going to be asking you, how did you make those cookies? So you can tell them if you like. Okay, next layer, like I said, alternating these colors. I've got chocolate, so I've got chocolate, yellow, and chocolate alternating. Okay, so next we're going to be enrobing this in the dough. You can cut these and use them the way that they are like this. Otherwise, you can finish them with enrobing dough on the outside, which is what I like to do. But sometimes if you're in a bakery, you're making a lot, or you don't have time, or you just don't want to do it like that. So I'm going to be enrobing this with the vanilla dough. For a different look, you can also use the chocolate dough too. So let's go ahead. And we're going to put this right up here. This dough is still really well set, so it's okay to go ahead and enrobe it right now. If you found this got sticky when you were doing this, if your kitchen was warm, if you got, distracted, put it in the fridge before you enrobe with dough. Okay, so enrobing with this dough, you're going to make your work area flat. And you're going to make your work area wet, sorry. Okay, then you're going to put a piece of plastic down, and you're going to roll the dough right on the plastic. Okay, so we've got a little bit of dough from earlier. I've got some chilled dough. Let's go ahead and kind of roll this out. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so the dough should roll okay. It shouldn't be too sticky. If you need to, you can put a little bit of flour down. Just kind of working this dough. I had a little bit of a cool piece here. And like I said, you can put another piece of plastic, or you can put some flour down if you need to. So we're going to be rolling this dough for enrobing pretty thin. It's going to be maybe about a 1/16 of an inch. So I've got a little bit of sticking here, so we're just going to put a little bit of flour to help with that tackiness. So like I said, this is going to be rolled to about a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to move this down a little bit, make a little more room. So be sure when you're rolling on plastic that you're dampening your work area, and this is going to help this plastic so it's not sliding around everywhere. So you're going to want to roll your dough fern robing big enough where it's going to cover that stack that we just made. So we're going to be wrapping it around, and then we'll be trimming off the excess pieces. And once again, we're going to be brushing with egg wash, just enough to make it tacky so everything's going to stick together. So if you don't do this, they can come apart when they're baking and they won't look quite so neat. So what you're going to want to do is place that stack on your dough. You're going to trim it. And then you're just going to be pulling the plastic up. And what I like to do is just kind of have a little lip here. And then you're just going to be rolling this, pretty much enrobing this. Be careful that your plastic is not cut underneath. Okay, move this up a little bit. We just have a real little bit of excess that we're going to trim off. And what's nice is you can just refrigerate this just like this in this rolled up plastic. What you're going to want to do is trim your edges a little bit. You can be careful when you're rolling so you don't have all this excess, but it's been known to happen. This definitely needs to set up in the refrigerator for at least an hour. It's kind of warm in here. This got pretty warm, so this I would leave in for 2 hours. So you're going to put your plastic around it. You're going to tuck it in a little bit. Make sure that your seam is smooth. Then this goes in the refrigerator. Okay. So what we're going to do first before we finish those is I've got this scrap here and I've got this extra piece that I'm probably not going to be using. So what you can do is you can kind of knead these together and you can make a nice marble cookie. Okay, going to knead this together. Then you're just going to roll this out in a cylinder that's about maybe 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches. You're going to refrigerate this and then you'll be cutting it too. So super nice way to use up your scrap. You can also roll this in granulated sugar. That's what I did earlier when I made some. And you can roll it in colored sugar too, coarse sugars, or even powdered sugar. So this is super nice way to use up your scrap. Okay, so once again, everything gets covered. That's going to go in the refrigerator. This is pretty soft. I would say probably about 2 hours, depending on how cool your refrigerator is. Okay, so I've got some checkerboard cookie that I made earlier. So let's go ahead and cut this. It's nice and firmed up. Easy to cut. It's going to hold its shape. When you're cutting these, if you pull it out and you notice that it's squeezing, it's not holding its shape, it's not firm, go ahead and get it back in the refrigerator because you don't want to mess up all your work that you did. So what you're going to be doing is trimming this, and you can save those pieces for the pinwheel and the marble cookie. So you're going to be cutting these in about 1/4 inch pieces. Then you're going to be putting them on a lined tray with parchment or a baking mat, and you're going to bake them at 355 degrees for about 20 minutes. Be mindful, depending on the size of your cookie, it's going to take less or more time. Cookie this size is going to take about 20 to 22 minutes. It's going to turn golden brown around the edges, and your friends and family are going to love these. See how easy they are to cut? I don't have any dough sticking to my knife. So be sure to have a lot of fun with these cookies. Your friends will be impressed. And Chef Susie would love to know how you're doing. So I just have a very classic checkerboard effect. And save the scraps to make your marble cookies. So it's just one of these things that it just takes a little bit of time, the process with the refrigeration, but you're going to have some really beautiful cookies. And you can do this. It's so easy. Just take the time to do all the steps. So you're going to put these on your baking tray, on your silpat, or on your parchment. You're going to leave a little bit of space in between. They don't spread a lot. They hold their shape. Just kind of puff a little bit, and you'll be ready to go. 3:55. This cookie about 20 to 22 minutes. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at some cookies that I made earlier. So we've got the classic checkerboard cookie. A little bit of dough on our plate. Okay, and I've got some of these little marble cookies too that I made with some of the scrap. So it's just super beautiful. Your friends will really love these. You can go ahead and plate them just as they are. You can serve them with milk. Nice milk and cookie combination. Maybe a few strawberries. We'll put some of these little bit marbled cookies on here. And your friends will love these. They'll be asking you how you made them. Try these too with different colors, different sizes of checkerboard. You'll be sure to love them. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of strawberry on our plate. And this is our classic vanilla and chocolate checkerboard cookie. And thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.